Italy and racing go together like pasta and garlic bread. So, of course, our drivers would have to make a visit to one of the legendary Italian tracks, Imola. Put your leather racing gloves on. It's time to get ready to watch round 4 of the Porsche Owners Club series. You'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nestled in a park, this is a picturesque circuit. Let's get a better look at it with our track guide. Welcome to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, but most race fans know this place as simply Imola. This circuit in the northern part of Italy has seen some of the highest highs and lowest lows in motorsports history. The various tragedies that have marred the track left no choice but to alter it in the name of safety. While it originally featured mostly fast, sweeping corners, its modern 3-mile or 5-kilometer version is punctuated by tricky chicanes and incredibly technical turns. iRacing includes the Grand Prix layout and a moto version, which adds one more chicane to the front stretch. Tamburello is perhaps the most notorious of the corners for claiming the life of multi-time world champion Ayrton Senna when it was still a single, breathtaking turn. Now the Triple Apexer not only offers potential passing opportunities, but catches out drivers quite frequently. While heavy braking zones are everywhere, because few places allow the cars to get up to speed, overtaking is generally seen as an exercise in frustration. As if to almost counteract this quality, the track itself is situated in a gorgeous public park and sends the drivers through the beautifully calming Italian countryside. It also includes a fair bit of elevation change, in which the track is split between the higher up back half and the lower first portion. It's no wonder that this place still proves popular with drivers and fans in spite of its difficulties in history. The Tifosi keep returning each and every time the sound of engines roar among the trees, and who can blame them? Well, the official name is a bit of a mouthful, Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, Joey, but the track itself is a beauty.
It's a Italian classic out there, and like you said, pretty much right there in the middle of town. 17 turns in length, 3.05 miles, and there's actually plenty of elevation change at this racetrack as well. The front straightaway is a little bit deceiving. You see it's not very straight. It kind of winds around to the right and then back to the left, and even going into that turn 2-3 brake zone, it's not very straight. So drivers, kind of be on your toes out there to make sure you keep the car on the track, and especially if you're side by side, you leave enough room for your competitors. Turn 5 and 6 is always a tricky chicane on the back half of things, and it leads into a good passing opportunity, that Tosa hairpin down there, which is a steep uphill hairpin that you can really take advantage of the front end grip and the brake zone going into it if you want to feel aggressive. Then the top of the hill, Piratella, turn number 8. Be careful on the driver exit side of things. That's the driver's right-hand side. Don't go too far out there. You'll run out of racetrack. And then the Aqua Minerale complex, always a tricky one to keep the car on the paved stuff. Another top of the hill, the Variante Alta chicane, the final chicane here in this Imola circuit. Make sure to get the run out on the top of the hill here, and don't go jumping up over those curbs either. It can definitely upset the platform of the car. And then turn 14, the Ravazza corners. It is a downhill brake zone. Pretty much all the other brake zones, you can be pretty aggressive going into it. But that one, you have to be very, very careful. It's easy to overshoot your marks there. And then turn number 15, the second of those Ravazza corners, you want to make sure you get that launch going out onto that twisty front straightaway.
Yeah, it's perhaps the only really long straight that you've got on the course of the lap, so it'll probably be important as we watch this race carry on. But before we get to that, let's take a moment to mention our sponsors, Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Top Gun MG, helping financial advisors be the best of the best. Contact them today at TopGunMG.com. That's TopGunMG.com. Real quick, Joe, in case we got new viewers, why don't you run through our race details for today's event?
We're still early on in the season here for POC, round 4 of 13. The drivers are going to be doing a 40-minute race. They're actually in a qualifying session right now that is 30 minutes long, an open qualifying session. And it is multi-class. That's why we've got both those Porsche GTEs, known as the RSR cars, and then also the Porsche GT4s. Those are going to be the Cayman chassis cars. You do have a couple spares available in the pit, so if you pick up any damage, you can come down the pit road, get yourself a brand new car.
We're in the midst of qualifying with about 4 minutes left to go. Andrew Chinichi currently leading up on the top of our GT1 class, and then down in the GT4s, we've got Federico Del Toro currently the quickest down there. So Del Toro finally had his day in the sun, if you will. Last time out, was able to take a victory. Let's see if he can repeat it today, as he's almost actually got a second over Viverco.
It's looking pretty fast out there, and yeah, I think it's a nice job from Del Toro, like you were saying, nearly a full second, but then look at how close it is between second, third, and fourth in that Cayman GT4 class. Only maybe 700 separating Viverco from Russell, and then Marciniak only 0.08 of a second behind Russell. So I know that we're always focused on these 911 chassis, these RSRs, the faster of the two cars, but that GT4 class provides some great competition.
Does, and with a lot less of the downforce on them, I imagine that might be a little easier to follow close to the car ahead. This track kind of notorious for the aero wake of downforce cars being quite tricky to deal with. BJ Fulton here second in those GTE cars, and about 0.2 of a second off of Andrew Chinichi currently. Could make that one up if he gets a good lap put together. In fact, it does look like he's on a decent one right now.
See this BJ Fulton going down into this Aqua Minerale complex. This is so tricky balancing the car because it is a heavy brake zone. And then you see how much of that track limit you really kind of abuse on the driver's left side. And then up to this very into Alta chicane. Look at those curbs, right, left. They're jumping all over them. As long as you don't cut them too much. Oh, it looks like BJ Fulton realized that wasn't going to work out and going to abandon that lap. But I was just going to say, don't want to cut those apex curbs too much. Barney's up there watching.
Yep. If you hear us refer to a slowdown penalty, that's what you get for cutting the course and going outside the track boundaries. That's automatic, and it's applied by iRacing. And drivers will only have so much time to serve it. So you might see a driver pull off to the side of the track to slow down and give that time back. Unfortunately for them, you can't do much to try and defend at those stages unless you're trying to be tricky and do it in some of the twistier sections, but that can cause its own problems. But we'll cover that if we get there at some point. In the meantime, Viverco, in what I have to say might be one of my new favorites here in this group, the 7-Eleven paint scheme definitely fits this Cayman very well.
You feeling some rolling hot dogs and maybe a Slurpee, Joe?
Definitely the Slurpee at the very least. Makes me look forward to 7-Eleven Day once we get to there, because they usually have the free ones. In the meantime, Matt Hollander, did he move up to second place?
Yes. Yeah, well, and just as you say that, Viverco retook second place over, so maybe those times at the top are starting to close down a little bit. It was a second between Del Toro and Viverco, and that's down to only 0.6 of a second.
We don't have Sam Mayorga here today, though, in either of the classes. He took a step aside as Rob Russell's unfortunately stepped out into the gravel, it looks like, in Tamburello. Larry Haas going to go through there without any interruption. He currently sits 7th out of that GT4 class. And in fact, if I'm looking at this, I think this might be the biggest GT4 class we've had all season.
I think so. I think we kind of flirt with the 5, 6, 7 entries. I see 8 entries here for the GT4 class. And you're right. You love to see it out there. The more, the merrier on the playground. And Checkers has fallen on qualifying. So as long as you've started this lap, you can complete it.
I think John Momeyer is going to be our first one to take that checkered flag. And he actually doesn't have a lap time, so it's going to be important for him to actually put one down here. It's not for lack of trying. I'm looking down his timing sheet, and he's just had too many off tracks that it's deleted the laps that he's attempted. Last time's a charm. He finally puts one on the board, but he stays in 8th place, so unfortunately he'll still have to start from the back. Meanwhile, as we watch our provisional pole sitter here in the GTE cars, one last try for Andrew Chinichi. He's been coming back looking very fast after a brief time away in this car. And as he approaches the line, it looks like this might be a big improvement, actually.
So his current is a 137.6. Let's see what he crossed the line at 137.7. So not quite fast enough to improve on his lap time. He still holds that provisional pole by about a quarter of a second over BJ Fulton, as it looks like the number 8 car here, Daniel Collins, comes to a rest in the gravel after his qualifying effort.
And that's everybody done. Nobody else can set a time from here. A grid is set with a nicely sized field of 19 total cars, 11 GTEs, and 8 of our GT4s going to be trying to compete around this beautiful Italian circuit. Question is, what's it going to look like once they get off the line? I was talking about how tough it can be to pass around here, Joey. This qualifying might be a critical aspect of a good result today.
Track position is always important when it comes down to racing. It doesn't matter if you're in an oval, a road race car, dirt track. You always want to be up front, and you're right. Imola can be a difficult place to pass on, especially with that front straightaway that I mentioned is not very straight at all. You can kind of hang out to drivers left side, the natural defensive line, and kind of just stick over there. So yeah, a lot of these corner exits kind of feed into defensive lines of corner entries. Passing can be tough.
See if anybody can manage to make it happen. It's also a track that elicits a lot of mistakes, so there will be drivers that are looking out for that and trying to capitalize when someone goes offline. Let's go through our starting order for today's event. Andrew Chinichi, as we mentioned, did get the pole. BJ Fulton going to be starting next to him on the front row. Jad Duncan will be P3 with Mark Rondeau in 4th. Heath Spencer starts P5 today. Michael Bolton in 6th position. Dustin Heindel in P7 and Robert Leclerc in the 8th position. Doug Baccignone will be 9th, and then the top 10 is rounded out by Jim Garamani. Only one more car in these GTEs, and that is Daniel Collins starting 11th.
And let's roll over to that GT4 class. It is your pole sitter, that gray number 27 Federico Del Toro with a 150.959. Lined up alongside of him is going to be Daniel Vaverko starting 2nd. Matt Hollander is going to share row number 2 with Rob Russell in 4th place. Christopher Marciniak in 5th. James Baxter back here in 6th. Larry Haas 7th, and John Momeyer rounding out that 8-car Cayman GT4 field.
Cars pretty much all gridded up, so we should be getting going behind the pace car here shortly. And then we'll be on our way for a 40-minute race. This also will involve at least one scheduled pit stop for fuel that the drivers will need. The thing that I always found interesting about this track, too, is that the cones are not after, like, immediately after the last pit stall like you normally see. Drivers still have to wait a long time before they can get back going. It's kind of a long pit lane.
It's a bit amusing, isn't it? You're right. It's an incredibly long pit lane, and it actually kind of enters immediately off of turn number 15, that second Ravazza corner. So you don't really even get up to speed and then slow down for pit lane, kind of like what we would see over at Montreal Circuit Villeneuve, right? And then to your point, once you actually make your stop, it seems like you're on that pit lane speed limiter for what seems like forever, just trying to reach those cones all the way at the end. So yeah, I think that the pit lane delta time, the overall time, quite large here.
Will that play a factor in drivers' strategy calls, not wanting to get caught up in lap traffic since it is going to hold them back for quite some time? Down into the Ravazza corners as the pace car is getting ready to unleash Andrew Chinichi. Can he manage to come around and take another victory here in the Porsche Owners Club Series? They've got the car into the pit lane at this stage. They're starting to rev those engines, but it's a long wait before they get the green flag, and they cannot go before then. So everybody's got to be on their toes as they wait patiently for the call from Barney. And he's holding them a long, long time here. Still not hearing the call from this. They're waiting for this line here, and there it is. Finally, green flag is out. And it's everybody accelerating hurriedly down into Tamburello to try to get that track position. Chinichi is later on the brakes. It looks like Fulton might be challenged for that second position as they race side by side. A little bit of an off in the background, but it looks like our GT4s are able to get through.
Yeah, we had kind of a massive stack up, and Federico Del Toro, who was your pole sitter, has actually gone back to what is third place in the GT4 class. We see Heath Spencer here having problems with that first chicane, but definitely a lot of action immediately in that GT4 class. And even right now, still, I think it's Daniel Collins in that final RSR that's kind of balking all the momentum. And, oh, Del Toro just actually spins in the Tosa hairpin.
No, he has an excellent opportunity to try to take a win today, but not when he does that. It's going to be a long haul for him to get back up to the front if he can do so. Meanwhile, Leclerc, now the latest that has had problems. This has proven to be a tricky circuit on the first lap.
Here we come up to this top variant to Alta chicane. Remember, on the opening lap, you definitely don't want to get any sort of slowdown penalty, so take it easy over those curbs. And Mark Rondeau, a huge loose moment, just probably putting the power down with cold tires. Didn't work out so early.
Well, I said this place generates a lot of errors. I didn't think we'd see this many on lap one. So many drivers slipping up, but thankfully it looks like we've only lost Heath Spencer down into pit lane. Everybody able to carry on otherwise. And Shinichi will lead the first lap. Fulton has dropped back by about a second, so he's not out of it, but he needs to try and play some catch-up.
Yeah, the front of the 911 field seems relatively, call it single file here, but like I was saying, and we've got a yellow flag. Yeah, because remember, I don't think the GT4s have completed that first lap, so I believe that window was still open.
It was, you are correct. For those not familiar with this series, they have an automated system. If enough incident points are reached, a yellow flag will be thrown if they do not complete that first lap by the time they hit those incident points. So that's why we're seeing the yellow flag come out. This is going to take some time for them to get back going, but thankfully they should shorten it, so we shouldn't have to wait too long to get back to green flag racing. For guys like Heath Spencer, Daniel Collins, and also Del Toro, this is a real boon.
It's definitely going to kind of help him out, bringing him back into kind of the main pack of things. And kind of as we get everything recollected here, I had mentioned that the RSRs, they got off to a pretty decent start, but the GT4s, let me just tell you, they kind of got balked by that really late green flag call without those 911s getting going, accelerating. And so I think it kind of took our pole sitter, Federico Del Toro, by surprise. He got swamped by Matt Hollander and Rob Russell. And then things just kind of continued to deteriorate with that slower RSR kind of in the back of the field with those GT4s kind of running up on them. It wasn't the start that I think that any of those Caymans were looking for.
Definitely not. Well, we've got a chance for Matt Hollander to maybe try and come away with a victory here. It's been a minute since he's been on the top step of the podium as well, but he's going to have a lot of cars hot on his heels on this restart. Rob Russell, Larry Haas will be the next two behind him. Del Toro was able to get back past Viverco, so he won't be starting last on the field, but he's going to have to overtake a lot of cars if he wants to try and get a win in on this one. I'm trying to see if they've caught up with that pace car yet. Yes, they're just about up to the pace car at the front of the field now, and there is Heath Spencer taking what I assume is some repairs, since his spare car should be out back immediately.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm going to go back and take a look at exactly what happened with Heath Spencer, because if memory serves, it was kind of on that turn 2-3 opening chicane section. I'm not even sure if he made it to kind of the Tamburello down there at turn number 4, and he had a couple of those incidents. So oftentimes when everybody is so stacked up on those opening laps, that's when a lot of those incidents happen. And at least on my screen here, Joe, it actually looks just like a single car incident, unfortunately, for Heath Spencer. A little bit of a lockup, and then he spun it himself down to that inside wall on driver's left.
It's so easy to mess up these chicanes at this track. Each one's so different from the other around here. I find it interesting as well, as we watch Viverco try to catch up there for a moment. That's our front row. The first and second are now second to last and last on the field after the first lap. So it's been a bit atrocious for the front of our GT4s. Hollander and Russell get to pick up the pieces on it, but will they be able to do it to the end. As let's see if the lights are still on, because I don't think they've shortened it yet. I think they're still waiting for the field. Yeah, lights are still on, so they have at least one more lap.
So I'm going back on my screen here because you'd mentioned Daniel Vaverko, and I was so focused on Del Toro, our pole sitter. But Daniel had heavy damage on the front end of his 711 machine after the Tosa hairpin, so he must have got into it somewhere in those opening couple corners, and then ultimately had a spin, I believe, up at the Variante Alta chicane on the opening lap. So, yeah, Joe, to your point, the opening front row in the Cayman GT4 class has got a hole to dig out of now.
Well, that'll give us some fun, hopefully, and we should see some exciting racing as they try to progress. The good news for them is the races are 10 minutes longer this year than they were last year. They were only 30 minutes before, so they got more time to try and get into it. Now, race control is trying to say that we're supposed to go green next time by, but the lights are still on the pace car, so they should be going back around one more time here. Yeah, pace car has gone past the entry. So I wonder if they just meant next time as in once they cross the start-finish line here.
I think so, and you know, I can kind of look at the admin side of things here too, and yeah, if we just let the full course yellow safety car kind of play out in iRacing, it's always a few laps. So unless they get up on there and tell it, hey, we want to go green this lap, should be one more to go, and we should get the lights out there on that safety car here at some point this lap. And in fact, I see him out right now. So you're right, Joe. This next time by, we should be going green flag racing again.
Excellent, excellent. All right, we've got some replays from the first before we get going once again. So let's get a closer look and check out what happened here. So here's Vaverko, and I'm with you. I didn't get to see this initially. I always thought this is one of the trickiest corners in racing coming down here into Aqua Minerale.
Yeah, and you know, I thought it was up at the top of the hill, but you're right. It's at that Aqua Minerale kind of bending right-hand corner, and he already had heavy front-end damage. He just got the outside tires out into the grass there. There's no grip, and kind of half spun it around to the inside. He did take that fast repair, though. He went down into pit road after that opening lap, found his pit stall, took one of those fast repairs, and actually, here we go. Let's watch this 711 car. I think he's going to get into the back of Daniel Collins. This is Federico Del Toro spinning it up around that Tosa hairpin. So that was your pole sitter. That's where he lost pretty much all of his ground.
Well, and he was already behind a couple cars, I think, too. So yeah, he seemed to have not had the greatest of starts, and it just fell apart even more on him. So Del Toro not off on the greatest start. And for some reason, Matt Hollander has moved to the back of the field, and has he taken a free repair?
I'm going to jump in here.
Okay.
I mentioned that Cayman GT4 start was a disaster. I think that all three of those front-running cars picked up damage from it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they've all taken the fast repair, or maybe the two front ones that got into it, and then Del Toro was just able to catch up after his spin.
Look at Russell. It has fallen into his lap that he is leading this race. And Larry Haas, too. Not often we get to see him on the podium. Could have a good opportunity for that. Marciniak going to be restarting from third. In fact, Larry Haas started this race in 7th position, has gained 5, and we haven't even had more than a full lap of racing. So this is going to be fun to watch. There's going to be some hungry drivers with excellent chances to try and do some things they've never got the opportunity to do before. And already the pace car is starting to pull away, and Shinichi is taking control of the pace of the field here at the front of it as they come down the hill into Ravazza.
I like it, though. And let's also consider there's only 30 minutes left on this race timer, right? They're used to a 40-minute race. We've essentially shrunken that down by 10 minutes. They're going to have to be even more aggressive.
So it's basically back to the length it was last year, essentially. So this is going to feel familiar to the longtime competitors in this series. The newcomers will just think this is a sprint now at this stage. And Andrew Chinichi did not lose the lead on that start, so he gets to do it all over again, except this time it is single file. He's holding Fulton up for quite a long while before he gets going. kind of slowly picking up pace, though, and now the green flag is out. He gets fully on the throttle, but he doesn't quite time it right. BJ Fulton has got a run on him. So does Jad Duncan. As they come down into Tamburello, he'll manage to stay ahead.
Looks like all three of them decided to choose the easy way, just follow them through single file. But look at this GT4, almost 3 wide going into what is turn number 2, and that's Daniel Faverko in that 7-Eleven machine. Where did he come from? He got a monster restart.
He's into third already. That was fantastic for him. And they'll come up into the Villeneuve chicane, but in front, it looks like it might be a bit of a battle between Haas and Russell, although Haas just made a mistake. He falls back a bit.
And unfortunately, I can report Federico Del Toro, more problems out here. He's trying to get by John Momeyer, but the rest of the GT4 class has taken off.
Leclerc seems to have had an issue there, coming up out of Tosa, I think it was. Not sure what exactly caused him issue. As we jump up to Marc Rondeau, he's chasing Michael Bolton for fourth. They'll hit the Alta chicane, both trying to straight line as much as they can over those tall curves and then get the run down to Ravazza.
This downhill braking zone here into turn number 14 is always a tricky one. And remember, the drivers have had a few laps, but the tire temperatures are not quite there yet. You got to get everything warmed back up on this restart. And I believe that was Jad Duncan there, really wagging the tail, trying to put the power down coming out onto this front straightaway.
Collins off the course and even behind the GT4s once again. We've got a nice little fight between Bolton and Rondeau carrying on down to the first corner, at least the first braking zone, I should say, as they hit Tamburello. Can't do anything once again. And Bolton also seems like he's approaching Jad Duncan, and they're being caught by Dustin Heindel. So what was a duo is becoming a quartet.
And the pressure that is just being put on from this Hot Wheels machine right now. Marc Rondeau is definitely trying to search for that way by Michael Bolton. Bolton does a nice job through that turn 7 Tosa hairpin, kind of put Rondeau maybe 5 or 7 car lengths back that you can focus forward through the visor.
So here's Collins. It looks like he might already be behind the other class. I'm not sure. No, it looks like he's still with his class here. So what caused him to go off? And, the rear just starts to come around.
All the weight's in the back there. You know, I know the RSRs are technically more mid-engine, right? They try to push it as far forward as possible, but it's still a lot of weight in the back, and these are older cars. Remember, they don't have those traction control systems that the GT3 cars have, or those ABS systems, so you really kind of got to rely on the driver feel through it all.
So Heindel has now dropped off a little bit, but we're going to check in with Leclerc behind him. He's chasing Doug Bacchignon down into the Ravazza double apexer. I think that's Jim Garamani behind them. Who is that actually? Oh, that's Heath Spencer. Okay, so that's a lapped car currently in his rear view camera that we can see blurry there. So he's not fighting them for position. But what's going to happen once they hit the brake zone? Is he going to try and get by here? Because it seems like Leclerc is kind of going defensive on him just a little bit to try and keep him from going by. He's in a battle for a spot here. He doesn't want to get separated.
Yeah, now what I find interesting as well is Heath Spencer, and call it that turquoise and orange car, at least on my screen, he's got a black flag for something. So he's going to have to be coming down pit lane eventually to serve what is a penalty. I'm sure that everybody directly in front of him is probably not too appreciative of that pressure they're starting to put on, but Heath Spencer is still rolling.
And this is Collins just having to sneak by Del Toro, who's a long ways away from Rob Russell at this stage. Rob's still running away with things. We get a little bit of a fight from Faverko versus Matt Hollander. Oh, and Faverko just too far off coming through the Villeneuve chicane. That'll cost him some time. Look at that, though. Forceful move from Hollander through Haas to get him into second place.
Just slid right through there, and you're right, up into second goes that pink number 69 Cayman GT4 driven by Matt Hollander. Now this is Marc Rondeau still trying to get by what is now Dustin Heindel directly in front of him. So Dustin got by at some point because it was actually Rondeau applying the pressure to, I believe it was Bolton maybe just half a lap ago.
Oh, that's a good point. I'd forgotten that they had swapped around there. He's chasing him, coming up along the twisting main straight up towards Tamburello. Coming into the braking zone, Rondeau not going to be close enough for this one. All of them trying to hit those marks as tidily as they can through this triple apex chicane, and it's a great run from Rondeau, actually.
See what he can do going down here into this, call it 5-6 complex as Villeneuve chicane. And honestly, Joe, between all the chicanes on this racetrack, that's always the one that gets me. It's always so fast on entry. You really have to commit to the car control on the beginning half of the corner and then just kind of deal with it in the middle. And if you don't catch it in time and if you're not on the racing line, it can spit you out.
It almost feels more like a corner with a kinked entry instead of a chicane at times. It is very fast on the way into there. Heindel's dealt with it, and he continues to keep Rondeau in his mirrors, but exiting out of Aqua Minerale, that's another good run coming off the corner for the 11 car. The Hot Wheels machine sizing him up, but he's going to have too short of a run to the next braking zone. It is just the tail of this circuit. It's always a great run and then not enough time to do anything with it.
I think that Rondeau's doing a pretty good job, though, in kind of halfway presenting the car, but still staying on the racing line, just kind of showing that inside fender to the car directly in front of him. Dustin Heindel as Andrew Chinichi out front now. 1.7 seconds goes by between himself and BJ Fulton, trying to extend that gap. That last lap time from our leader, a 138.8. BJ Fulton in second place, a 139.0.
Wow, doing a great job. Let's see what's gone on with James Baxter. Did he also have trouble keeping it pointed the right way? Yep, especially when you go in the grass coming off of Ravazza and he takes a little damage for his trouble.
Let's see, does he go straight into pit lane? Does he grab it? That's what I would do. Pit crew says, nope, you're good. Keep on going.
It's driving straight enough. Might as well just see what positions he can pick up, especially since this track is definitely causing a number of cars to go off like that. He could just pick them up by trying to race it clean from here. BJ Fulton not looking like he's got the speed at this stage, but we still got 20-some minutes and some change left in this race. And Rob Russell, again, looking like he's got such a beautiful opportunity right in front of him. The car behind is still Daniel Collins, so it's not for position. Matt Hollander, if I'm seeing this correctly, is almost 3.5 to 4 seconds behind.
Yeah, and it's actually Larry Haas, Daniel Viverco, Marciniak, and Federico Del Toro that are all catching up right now. Unfortunately, I think that Larry Haas just had that moment. You see him coming back out onto the racetrack, so he just lost several positions. But something has happened to Daniel Viverco after making that monster restart to kind of drop him back behind a lot of those cars that he passed. And here comes Federico Del Toro up the inside. This is the redemption run from this gray number 27 car. Let's see how far forward he can go, because that's his fellow front row buddy up there, Viverco, just in front.
Marciniak was able to cut back and get underneath them, but he chops him off at the apex. Brave stuff from Del Toro. He wanted that one bad, and that'll give him fourth place. Can he catch Viverco in front of him, or is he going to continue to have to play the rear guard on Christopher?
I've always enjoyed talking with this driver, Federico Del Toro, after the race. He's always so focused on learning every single week, try to learn something new. And last year it was a 911 chassis car. This year it's the Cayman GT4 car. And I think that this race has thrown him quite a few different math equations, from the initial start to the restart to having to find his way up through the field again. If he can get up on the podium here today, I think that he'll consider that a job well done.
I agree. It's considering how many setbacks he's had here, as that was a little off the apex from Heindel that time. Rondeau still unable to capitalize upon it as they hit the brakes up into the Alta chicane once again. Both of them just glancing those tall sausage curbs, almost climbing over the rear wing of Dustin Heindel. Marc Rondeau continues to play a serious threat.
See if Mark feints anything. He kind of showed just a little bit of a move to the inside, and oh, maybe that was just enough. Heindel a little bit wide in that first Ravazza corner, but then kind of gathers the car up before turn number 15 and crucially is able to kind of nail the apex there, which makes it a moot point that he missed 14. But I tell you what, that downhill brake zone, if you go a little bit further than what Heindel did, you'll find yourself out in the gravel and really losing the momentum.
Into the braking here for Tamburellos, who ride on board with Rondeau, showing how much change of direction these cars have to do just at the start of the lap. This is that Villeneuve chicane that we were talking about. Watch how quick this entry is.
So fast on that first apex. And to your point, yeah, it is almost just like a fast kink corner, not really a chicane, because it almost seems like you got to get on the brakes after the first apex. So in terms of vehicle dynamics and the driver understanding what the car is doing, a lot going on.
You're still behind Michael Bolton up there. They haven't dropped off of him, thankfully. And, oh, side by side into Aqua Minerale. That takes some guts, but not quite enough at this stage for Mark Rondeau. He backed out of it. Maybe he's going for this, setting himself up for the exit out of Aqua Minerale. Defensive move from Heindel. Then he comes back to the racing line. They will stay as they were, but now things are kicking up a notch.
I can't help but to think that the Hot Wheels machine might be just a little bit faster than Dustin Heindel in this Cookie Monster machine. Talk about some great kids' liveries going on today. It makes me a little bit hungry. I would like some cookies, Joe.
I had a fudge round a little bit earlier, so I've had my
and even on look at the rear wing. It says cookie.
All right, well, we'll see which way the cookie crumbles here in a moment, because this is getting good for Rondeau. He's got a much better toe than last time. Will we see Heindel defend? He's got the inside if he wants it. Yes, he stays off to the left-hand side. Rondeau trying to see if he can break any deeper. Cuts back across. There's not much in it for the first apex. Second one might offer it. It switches back once again. There he goes. 3 wide as they go through the traffic. And staying out of the way, Baxter doesn't want any part of that. Job done now for Mark Rondeau. Move him into 5th.
That was excellent racecraft from Mark. I mean, he kind of put it to the outside, forced Dustin Heindel to go a little bit deep, and then did the crossover move a couple times and finally got the track position. Nicely done from that Hot Wheels machine driver. Now he sets his sight forward on Michael Bolton, who he was chasing a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it took him a while. He's going to be regretting how much time he may have lost in that one. More problems for Collins. Whoa, off way too fast at Piratella and into the wall. Not sure. Is he still continuing after that, or is he coming to the pits?
I still see him with a speed, but I believe he will be coming into pit lane. Oh, no! Federico Del Toro, after making up so much ground, has now found himself into a wall.
Well, as we said, there is a spare car waiting for him, but this pretty much does away with any hopes of a good result from here. Here we go. Let's take a look at what happened in all of this. Oh, just got tipped by, I think, Collins trying to get back to pit lane.
Yeah, you know, when it rains, it pours, and if you don't have good luck on the racetrack, you don't have any luck at all type of deal. Federico Del Toro, gonna forget about this one for sure. Shake it off, bud.
Let's not forget, we do have a scheduled pit stop, and I just was reminded because Michael Bolton came in. So I wonder if some of these drivers might actually be able to get away with it without losing too much time, because they could come in, take their scheduled stop, get the spare car, and get back going. And we have a much wider pit window because of that caution flag.
That's an excellent point, and we've seen a lot of drivers really try to stretch that window. And Joe, unfortunately, I can just report that Federico Del Toro just lost the car again. Man, just what a race to kind of forget about for him.
This will be the one that got away. But as much as we've been commiserating with Del Toro, I have to give credit to Russell still leading this race, although I think Hollander has started to reel him in a little bit. That's Momeyer having completed his scheduled stop and back out on the track. Viverco has caught up to Marciniak. Can he manage to get by and get himself at least onto the podium positions? Vaverko's lap times, if I'm seeing this correctly, looks like he's in the 52 to 54 range. I think, well, that might not be enough to catch up to Russell. He's going to have to pick it up.
This is why he's behind Marciniak. Remember the opening lap? He did the same mistake, got too wide going into that Aqua Rally complex, except this time carrying way more speed because the tires are already up to temperature, spins it around, and thankfully Heindel right here is able to avoid as Vaverko comes back onto the track, but there you see Marciniak in that white and red number 35 getting by him.
Almost made Heindel toss his cookies at that point, but Marc Rondeau, still working on trying to run away from him, is actually caught up to Jad Duncan. He's left Heindel behind by about 3 seconds. Mark had so much more pace, it looks like.
He did a great job to stay patient, didn't he? He wasn't trying to force the issue with Heindel at all, and I think that he kind of realized that maybe a little bit of a mistake put him back behind that blue number 19 car. So you're right, now that he's kind of caught the back end of Jad Duncan, it's almost rinse and repeat.
This is for podium position in the GTE cars here, and he looks very fast. He's catching up even more to that 83 machine, but as we saw, it's one thing to catch, it's another to pass here. I almost wonder if this is the right time for Rondeau to finally take his pit stop.
That's a great point. You know, if you're able to get in before Jad Duncan and then basically get out into clean air, you can go out there and do an outlap that is quote-unquote faster than Jad Duncan can do and then be able to make that pass in pit lane. Let's see if he's going to peel off to driver's right-hand side, or let's see even if Jad Duncan decides to hit pit lane. No, they're both going to stay on the racetrack.
He might be able to do this on the racetrack. Marc Rondeau is pulling a nice little tow. That car in front of him is Jim Garamani. He's a lapped car, so that's not fourth position, but he could play a part in this. He's going to try and stay out of the way of both of them. Breaks a little bit earlier, almost 3 wide. Oh, and he gets contact. Rondeau losing control, could not stay out of the back of Jim.
So unfortunate. It just goes down to that front straightaway not being straight. That brake zone is not straight going into that turn 2-3 complex, and unfortunately Rondeau was going all the way up the inside and then had to get it back to driver's right, and there was already a car directly in the way. So unfortunate there for the Hot Wheels machine.
And now Jim finally able to let him through, and that's allowed Dustin Heindel to catch up a little bit, but he's going to have to lap that car as well in the process. So I think this gives a chance for Rondeau to start to scoot away once more. In the meantime, yeah, there we go. Now he allows him by. He knows that's not his battle. Waiting to see. We've only had, it looks like, Bolton and Garamani in for scheduled stops in the GTE cars. Rest of them are still going.
I'm going to kind of throw out I wouldn't say it's crazy, but we've been so focused on Marc Rondeau that I think that he hasn't fallen back far enough to really be out of touch with Jad Duncan. Still with 11 and a half minutes remaining, he's been turning laps consistently about half a second faster than Jad Duncan in front of him. I think he's still got a chance to get on the podium today.
I don't think it's off the cards, that's for sure. So we watch Matt Hollander now. Oh, and he's caught up to Rob Russell. It's now within a second of one another, but they've got some lapping traffic behind them. Doug Boccignone is going to want to try and clear this rather quickly. Should have the straight line speed to leave them alone.
Yeah, crucially, we'll get by Rob Russell here on the front straightaway. Yeah, so to your point, going to be a non-issue going into the brake zone. Matt Hollander just kind of can focus on picking that brake marker, stand on it, and you see it kind of bend around to the left there. Definitely not straight in the brake zone, but stays off of those apex curbs. But guess what? So does Rob Russell directly in front of it. Still about a second and change.
Just trying to check in my stats here and see when the last time we had Hollander on the top step. I think we've had him on the podium recently, but I'll probably have to check on that later. In the meantime, I'll keep my eyes here on the track. Marciniak in the podium positions, but man, a whopping 13 seconds behind here with 10 minutes left to go. he's probably not going to catch them unless something happens with those top two.
I call it a lonely race. You know, there's lots of races out there that you're with your buddies or have a fierce battle, and then sometimes you're kind of like what we just saw out of Marciniak or even Andrew Chinichi up here. He's got nobody within about 4 seconds of him, nobody to race, and it kind of puts the driver into a little bit of a different mental state because you're not focused on those battles per se. The mind can actually wander a little bit, so I wouldn't say it's easier. I wouldn't say it's more difficult. It's just a little bit of a different focus you have to have.
Yep, the rabbit versus the fox, I guess you could say. Are you better leading or are you better chasing? Right now, Andrew Chinichi looks pretty comfortable leading this race. 3.7 seconds over BJ Fulton. We haven't seen it shrink in quite some time, but they both still owe us a pit stop, of which I believe Robert Leclerc has just come in for, and Doug Boccignone as well. Looks like he is getting ready to serve that. And Robert leaving the pit lane actually now, so he's already finished his.
And I'm just kind of looking at the data here, right? Leclerc was stopped for 6.8 seconds. Michael Bolton has already served his stop, 5.2 seconds. This car right here, Doug Boccignone, was stopped for 5.9 seconds. So looks like the 911 chassis cars, call it 5.5 to 7 seconds of fuel. That's what you're looking at. And you think, oh, that's not a big deal. The delta time, 33 seconds on pit lane, Joe.
So much more of it is spent just trundling along at an achingly slow speed. I have to double check to see what the pit speed limit actually is here, but I know it's pretty far down there. So when is Rob Russell going to pit in? Oh, and Matt Hollander has taken his. This could be interesting. Oh, wait, no, excuse me. That was from when Matt Hollander came in and took his spare car. So Hollander also still needs to be in.
Question, can that count as his pit stop, or does it have to be in the window?
You know, I don't think the rule specifies that it has to be under green flags or that you have to take a stop. It's just they limit the fuel on these cars. So, yeah, if he's filled up enough that he can make it to the end, then theoretically Hollander is sitting in a very good position.
And we don't know, right? Here's John Momeyer, who's coming down to get his done. I actually think that John might have a black flag under him, and that might be why he's doing a little bit of a drive-through penalty. But I am curious, right? Because we had the race shortened essentially 10 minutes because of a yellow flag. You got to think fuel burn, not nearly as big of a deal. Here's Rob Russell relinquishing the lead to Matt Hollander, so we know he has to get gas. But the big question was that pink number 69 who's leading the race right now.
Exactly. If you're Rob, you're crossing your fingers that Matt is sucking up enough fuel right now that he needs to come in and take that pit stop. Meanwhile, only Hollander knows whether or not he can get to the finish from here. This is uncharted territory for us up here in the booth. We don't know whether or not this car took enough during the pit stop, if he took any, to try and complete the entire race. Russell already back out, and he will emerge what looks to be in about 5th place.
I think what concerns me about Rob Russell's pit stop, though, is he was stationary for 14 seconds. You compare that to Veverko at 11 seconds, who's in front of him. I wonder if maybe it was a little bit of an overfill. There's only 6 minutes remaining. That seems like a lot of fuel to put in the car.
Oh, you're right. He may not have taken into account that he didn't need as much as he normally would. So and you're right that Veverko has essentially leapfrogged him. So that is a position loss for Russell. He already won't be our leader by the time we come back around and all the pit stops have been completed. BJ Fulton is now our highest driver to have pitted in the GTE cars. He emerges in 5th place. This is Rondeau, who right now is running in 3rd behind Jan Duncan. But both of them do still need pit stops.
And here we go. The man of the race, Mark Rondeau. I was curious to see if he could actually catch back up to Jad Duncan. He was about 3, maybe 3.5 seconds behind after that little bit of an incident with, I believe it was Garamani down there in the turn 2-3 complex, but has really put the virtual visor down and gotten to it.
Definitely impressed with his speed, but he's got to kind of limit the mistakes here. It seems at this track, as they head through one of the places where it's easy to make that mistake through that tight chicane at Alta, and he is nice and tidy behind Chad Duncan, continuing to apply the pressure here in these final few moments. Do we need a pit stop for these drivers? Shinichi is in, our leader is in, so I would assume that everybody else does need to take a pit stop.
Oh, Chad Duncan wide there on the second Ravazza corner. Let's see, Mark Rondeau is going to take the opportunity, hit pit lane. This could be that undercut that we were talking about a handful of laps ago. Can Chad Duncan stay up to pace on the racetrack, or if Mark Rondeau can get the pit stop cycle done quicker?
Andrew's done. He's back out past the cones, tries to get up to speed, and it was slightly longer than some of our drivers. In fact, wow, BJ Fulton's was way shorter by almost 3 seconds.
I think that Andrew was probably just being a little bit generous, right? He had a 4-second lead between himself and second place. I wonder if he just made sure he had enough gas to get across the checkered flags.
So now we wait for Vaverko and Hollander to pit. Supposedly, both of them were in earlier on in this race, but it was after only a single lap, and they had the caution laps to try and save fuel after that, but we don't know whether or not it's enough. This will be very telling right here if he commits, because he'll only, I think, have one more opportunity afterwards. And yeah, Matt Hollander's trying to stretch it. He's going to stay out one more time.
Here's the other variable with doing that. Remember, the checkered flag, our 40-minute time limit, is based off of our lead class. And am I noticing this on screen right here, Joe? Does Vaverko, he's got no rear wing on this GT4.
You're right. He's gotten damage somewhere that we seem to have missed. I don't recall that being the case a bit ago. So he's about 28 seconds behind Matt Hollander. And he's coming in. He is into pit lane. So, yeah, this is probably damage that he's had recently.
So I assume that he'll take that second fast repair. He's already used one in that opening incident. And I believe Dustin Heindel has also hit pit road. That was Chad Duncan, I believe, that followed him in. Yeah, that's that black and yellow car. So he'll relinquish the lead back to Andrew Chinichi out there on the racetrack.
Okay, GTE's kind of returned to as they were. Fulton back on to second, where he was before the pit stops. But Chad Duncan, he's going to be ahead of Heindel. Rondeau, is Rondeau even going to get Duncan? Yes, he is. Rondeau moves up to third. The undercut worked.
Perfectly executed from Rondeau. And actually, Chad's going to lose another position. There goes Michael Bolton in another black and yellow car. So I wonder what happened. Maybe a little bit of a long stop. No, it wasn't a long stop from Chad Duncan. Maybe it was just a poor in and out lap. And this is what happened right here to Vaverko. The downhill brake zone caught him out and still got a rear wing at that point. So maybe a second incident, maybe right here. Oh, bummer.
Larry Haas was there right as he tried to return to the track. And Haas had his own moments, unfortunately, going completely off. So, yeah, now we've got Bolton and Duncan fighting for fourth. That was a bit of a strange one for sure for Chad Duncan, because by all metrics, it shows that the pit stop was significantly longer for Bolton.
It's the outlaps and inlaps. We see it in professional racing come into play all the time, and it's true here in the sim world as well. If you are not on 10/10ths of your speed on the outlap or the inlap, even in the brake zone to hit that pit lane cone, it can cost you track position. Getting
information from, I believe, Matt Steele, confirming that the pit stops are not required. It is all just the limited fuel that determines whether or not drivers have to come into pit lane. So if you can save enough with a caution, you might as well go for it. So here is our leader, and I think this is white flag lap, actually.
Yeah, this definitely should be. I think he crossed the line about a minute to go. And on my screen, here we go. Chad Duncan trying to make the pass on Michael Bolton, and Bolton gets loose. He gets into Chad Duncan. Chad spins off into the gravel. Unfortunate there for the 83 machine.
And he's going to lose multiple positions. Heindel also goes by. Looks like Leclerc won't get there in time, but Chad slips down to sixth on the last lap of the race. It definitely is at this stage. You can see we're down to less than 10 seconds to go. Shinichi is still behind Matt Hollander, so Hollander's got to go another lap around unless he has enough room to lift. Is Rob Russell? He could lift and let Shinichi by, but does Matt Hollander know that?
I don't think he really can. I mean, he's already out of the turn 15 Ravazza corner. He'd pretty much have to park it on the racetrack. So, yeah, Hollander has to go one more lap as Shinichi sees the checkered flag almost through the bend.
I think it might still guarantee him the win since he's split by the leader, because here is Andrew Shinichi taking the victory here today at Imola, and by only 3 seconds over BJ Fulton. Behind them, as Rob Russell comes to the line, that confirms that Matt Hollander will be our winner in the GT4s.
Let's not take away anything from this driver right here. Rob Russell did a terrific job to kind of capitalize on that initial start and really managed the race from there on out. It just so happened to be that Matt Hollander could actually make it on fuel while Rob Russell had to make that pit stop. Great execution from both of the drivers.
We might want to ride on board with Hollander, because I'm watching him and it looked like he was going a bit slow. And it doesn't matter whether or not he runs out of fuel, because it'll still count him as the winner on this one since he made more laps than anybody else. He goes around Daniel Collins there briefly. So let's listen. Yeah, I think it sounds fine. I think he should be able to make it.
Well, and guess what, Joe? It's from this chicane right here, it's downhill to the start-finish line for the most part. Get out and push.
Exactly. Gravity will help you to get to the end from here, although you do have to navigate a 180-degree corner. So that'll take away some of the momentum. Regardless, I think this is one for Matt to be proud of. That was a stroke of genius. The only other driver, no other drivers in the GT4s were able to do what he did and stretch it. Our winner today is going to be Matt Hollander in the GT4 class.
Nicely done. We didn't see it coming. I don't think that he really kind of envisioned after that opening lap that he would be taking a win, but great job to kind of dig out of that hole after the opening lap.
Just a great call. And Andrew Shinichi, though, great speed here today, taking the win over BJ Fulton. Mark Rondeau gets himself a podium, and he had a fight for that one. Michael Bolton was P4, Dustin Heindel P5, then Jad Duncan finishing 6th today after an incident on the last lap. Robert Leclerc, P7, was followed by Doug Boccione in 8th, a lap down for Garamani in 9th, and then Daniel Collins, many laps down there in P17, and Heath Spencer, a DNF.
Over to those GT4 results. It was Matt Hollander in the number 69 car that takes home the win. Rob Russell did a terrific job, like I said, to manage the race from out front the majority of the time and then finish in second place. Marciniak with a nice podium here in third. Larry Haas hangs on to fourth. Daniel Vaverko, a very up-and-down, event-filled day, finishes in fifth. James Baxter, sixth. John Momeyer, seventh. And then unfortunate for Federico Del Toro, I felt like a lot of that stuff was kind of out of his control, and he'll look forward to the next race finishing in eighth today.
And again, he didn't have Mayorga here, who has really been the one that's been keeping him from the wins for a couple of the races. Looks like he's not going to be able to capitalize on that. I think we've got Andrew Shinichi with us, double checking here to see if we're going to be chatting with him. Andrew, congratulations on the win. I guess the first question we have is, was the pit stop unintentionally a bit longer than the others, or were you just playing it safe?
Oh, I have no clue. I just put it on auto fuel, and whatever it does, it does. So I'm sure I could calculate it a little bit better, but I mean, it was like 3.2 gallons or whatever, so that was pretty quick.
Yeah, and it didn't cost you the lead in the end. It's kind of a race opposite of what we saw many others had for you, because you seem to have a bit of a quiet one at the front while it was practically chaos behind you.
And there was a lot of talking on the radio, that's for sure. and I see the gap was pretty big behind. But no, I mean, it wasn't. BJ kept me honest. I mean, he's was relentless, and then when you're coming up on traffic, it's super easy to lose a lot of time. So, I mean, I'm sweating. It was exciting. I think his car was a bit more trimmed out. He would gain like 3-4 tenths on me on the straightaway. So the delta was always changing across the lap. So I didn't really know how much I actually had.
Well, it looked like it was comfortable enough to get another victory here this season. Next one, though, will you be around for Sonoma? Because I imagine heading back to home soil, that's going to be an important one to be able to be out on top.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I'm going to try to make it. I love Sonoma. And yeah, I mean, it seems to be pretty competitive. Everyone... I think this one was a little bit big. The gaps were a bit bigger because of the track being so difficult with the off tracks and being precise with that. But I think Sonoma will have 2 or 3 other guys kind of right up there. So that'll be good. Yeah, I'm gonna try to make it.
That's great to hear. Andrew Chinichi, our winner here today at Imola in the GTE cars. Meanwhile, we have our winner from the GT4s ready to chat with Joey. It's Matt Hollander.
Well, first of all, Matt, congrats on the win today.
Thanks, Joey.
So, talk us through the initial start, because that seemed like a mess to deal with on that opening lap.
It was a little interesting that the faster traffic up in front there getting a little loose. It was kind of like ping-ponging back and forth between each other, but I figured if I just kind of held the middle line, it would work out eventually.
Well, and then it seemed to work out in terms of the pit stop strategy, because you had to come down and either get some of that damage fixed up, and I assume you put fuel in the car then to make it to the end.
I did. So, as soon as the pit window opened, went ahead and dove in and got the fuel needed to go ahead and finish the race, and, I guess the strategy worked out.
It was definitely a smart play. So I got to ask you, when you were behind Rob there for, call it, the last maybe third of the race, were you just kind of hanging out waiting for him to hit pit lane?
No, I actually didn't know if he had pitted yet, but if you guys were watching the timetable, like every lap it was a 10th here, 10th there, and I was starting to catch him, and I felt that I had the pace that I could have got him by the end, regardless if he had to pit or not. So was just kind of biding my time, waiting for him to either make a mistake or have to pit, and just kind of running my own race back there.
Well, a great job today to climb up and finish on top of the Cayman GT4 class. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Thanks for you guys for broadcasting. Thanks to all the guys here at the POC that helped put this on. I mean, it's been probably 3 months since I've been able to jump on the sim. I built a sim for my son for Christmas and have still yet to put mine together. So got to do this one on his little Logitech G29 tonight. So it was quite fun.
That's awesome to hear. Dueling sim rigs in the house always sounds like a fun time. That was Matt Hollander, your winner in the GT4 class, driving that pink number 69 Cayman GT4, Joe.
We got second in the GTEs, which was BJ Fulton as well. And we heard from our winner, Andrew, that he felt BJ was keeping him honest. BJ, did it feel like that from your end? Did you feel like you at least had him in your sights?
Yeah, I did. I felt like I was just close enough to keep him honest, like he said. But, he was pulling away from me just maybe a tenth or two per lap. So, I couldn't quite get there to get around.
Well, and this track is kind of known for being so hard to pass on. Was this something where at the start of the race you felt that was going to be critically important towards a potential win, that you had to get by then, or it was never?
Not really. Actually, I went with a different strategy here and went with a very low downforce setup. So I had a ton of speed on the front straight, and I was anticipating having to get around people there. So, I didn't really get a chance to race with people to see how well it worked, but yeah, that was the plan.
Well, it worked out decently well. You caught up some time in the pit stops and didn't get him in the end. But another podium here. It seems like you've been having a pretty decent season.
Yeah, decent season. I've had to do a lot of comebacks, so for once it was nice to have a rather uneventful race. But looking forward to the next one.
All right. I imagine a lot of you guys are being from the West Coast. Looking forward to Sonoma. Congratulations on P2.
Thanks.
And that was second place in the GTEs, which I believe is going to wrap us up. So we're going to give a big thank you to our sponsors before we head out, which includes Porsche, There Is No Substitute, as well as Top Gun MG, helping financial advisors be the best of the best. Thanks to the team today, Joey, Daniel, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. Like we've been saying, we're off to California. Sonoma, we're a track where a lot of these drivers have had real-world experience. That'll be Monday, March 10th at 10 p.m. Eastern. But then up next, we've got the DCRA going to their home turf, Road Atlanta. That'll be later this week. Be sure to check out all our other broadcasts that we've got listed here coming up after that. And until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.